Oh, it says everyone can see you and hear you.
I know. Hey, welcome to Tammy Speaks. I am Tammy Hines, and I'm joined by a fellow clinician, Tammy Newton. Tammy and I work together, but our thoughts are sometimes different, ain't it, Tammy?
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes.
so tonight we wanted to jump on because, Tammy, I don't know about you, but I'm hearing a lot of press about Travis Scott, Drake, who caused what. And we're not going to do that right now. We want to focus on the concert goers. Who was at that concert? Who experienced what they experienced? What do they do next? Why don't anybody want to talk about trauma? Well, we'll talk about it in the newspaper, but we will not uphold it when it's the next day. And you're feeling these symptoms coming on hard. Some people might not slept. It's a lot of things that happen. So, Tammy, in Houston, this is as far as we're going to go. In Houston, there was a concert. And
yes,
I've gone to concerts before. And at this particular concert, what happened was there was a mob and it just got out of hand very quickly. And people died. And there was some who survived. And some of those who survived could have what? Survivor's guilt. We don't talk about that. We're going to talk about all the things that we don't want to talk about. Mental health is so impactful. It really is. And mental health is one of those things that, we'll talk about physical health. We'll talk about all the people who broke their leg. We'll talk about all the people who had their ribs crushed. But not one comment will be about what manifests mentally, emotionally. So, what do you think about what happened, and where do the concert goers need to do next?
from what I read about it, is that when the concert started and they all moved forward, there were people literally screaming for people to move because they couldn't be.
Can you imagine that?
They were.
So there were people literally crushed. You went out a little bit, Tammy. And you're still out. So there were people who literally
not to
were
pay attention
crushed.
to. Yes, to pay attention to those people who are screaming and yelling for help. I think you have to talk about what is in our culture now that allows these things to happen. And some definitely have. I read some stories of people trying to help people and they felt helpless and hopeless that they were not going to get out alive.
Oh my God, can
so
you imagine?
There was a lot of different issues. Yeah, I can imagine. And also, how many people were there already traumatized by other things, and when they felt trapped, how many of those people passed out from vicarious trauma, by previous trauma, and so it was just stacking on top of it. But nobody would move.
Well, could they move?
Yeah, they could, but
they couldn't move. But they were, you know how sometimes it's an accident.
That were crushed.
Yeah.
Not the people that were in the front. The people in the back were moving forward. And so even the people that were trying to move back had nowhere to go. There was nowhere for them to go.
Oh, my goodness. I mean,
yeah.
Can you imagine having fear that you are literally going to die right there? And pushing, you don't know who you pushed. You don't know where the people who you came with, where they might be. It was total chaos. So I know some of, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying some of the family, can you imagine also being a family member and that's your child. Like they lost a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old. Those kids, like, can you imagine what a mother would think? Like, oh my gosh, my child was being suffocated by, I couldn't help her.
Wow.
Like how helpless and hopeless those families feel as well. And some of their parents were right around them, but they got broken up and when they started pushing forward.
Oh, well, the top stories are leading with certain people who are going to throw money at it. And I don't mean throw money at it like that. It's easy to pay for a funeral, Tammy. It's not easy to pay for months, maybe even years of therapy. You know,
Right.
You know how we mentioned somebody might have broke their leg.
And that happened too.
Generally is going to heal in what, 6 to 8 weeks? Right? But what about...
Yeah, it depends on what it is, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. But what about the trauma symptoms? And what are some of those? When I just think of what they went through, and I think a lot of us think about post-traumatic stress disorder, but that's really different.
They can't sleep. They can't sleep. They can't eat. They don't feel safe. They can't leave their house. How many of them will never be able to go to another concert?
Oh my!
Even if they love music. How will this change the concert scene in general? But people who have you already know, working with trauma. I mean, I've been working with people 4 and 5 years that it takes a long time to build an infrastructure with someone so that they can even process through the trauma.
Oh my.
You have to build months of coping strategies before you can even talk about it. Because they can't deal with it.
And I think that's what people might not understand. I may want to talk about it, but I can't talk about it until I'm ready and my body will let me talk about it. Right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's not like I can force it out.
No.
How many people are going to not be able to sleep because of nightmares, flashbacks? How
about going to a mall? Do you think any of those people will be able to, the ones that were traumatized, definitely go into a mall during Christmas?
Oh my.
Like,
it's just a crowd. I can't go in crowds anymore. Yep.
Even going to watch a Christmas parade or Thanksgiving Day parade or even a large family that gets together. My family's huge. And you get my family together, you got 40 plus people in a small house. Most of those people probably would not be able to do that this year.
I didn't even think about that. You don't think about so many different, and it's not a one size fits all, unfortunately. And everything is not always medicatable. I think we think, oh, well, they just need to take some medication. Everything is not medicatable.
Oh, and all that does is cover it up for it's a temporary answer to a long-term problem.
Absolutely. And what about those people who, don't want to come to therapy? Not to saying that everybody does, not saying that at all. But it's some people who really are scared to even come to a therapeutic session. What happens in therapy, Tammy, from your purview?
Well, I literally just had a young lady tell me she actually found her dad. He had overdosed, and she was one that found him, and she had to, with her brother, pick him up and rush him to the hospital. So he was dead for over 10 to 15 minutes, but was brought back on Narcan.
Okay.
Well, to me, and I asked her, I said, well, he's a therapist. I have people here because when he woke up, he said, why didn't you just let me die?
Oh my gosh.
He was mad.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. He wanted to die.
He wasn't trying to kill himself.
No, but no, well, no, he was not trying to kill himself, but it was okay if he died.
Oh my God.
He has tons of trauma. So I asked her, I said, would you give him this number and have him, like, if he wants help? And she said, tell me that he's a real man and he doesn't need to go to therapy. So that tells me that there's a lot of people out there, you know, this is just one sit, but I get that a lot where people say, I don't need therapy, you know, but he has traumatic issues that he has not dealt with all the way from 12 years old. And now he's in his 50s and he still thinks that because he's a man, he doesn't have to go get help.
And it usually leads with anger. I can get mad, but I can't get treatment.
That's right. I can use drugs. He literally got mad yesterday. Left the house, turned off his family 360, so the whole family is up and, you know, thinking, oh my gosh, he's doing it again.
Oh man.
So I think a lot of people do that. I mean, in my practice, I see mostly women. I do, and children. I do have a few men, but for the most part, and you know, men out there are hurting. You know, there's men out there hurting.
You ain't lying about that.
But
and they don't know
most
how.
Of us.
I used to say everybody might not need to come to therapy. But that's just like saying everybody might not need to come to a medical doctor. At some point, you go just to make sure you're okay. Right? You go at least once a year just to make sure your physical health is intact. So I totally get that. Tammy, you are out. I don't know. Where are you? In Bucksnort, Tennessee? Where are you? So we can't hear you right now, but I just can't imagine how I got through some of the traumatic things in my life without talking to somebody. And I'm not talking about talking to a girlfriend or talking to a husband. I'm talking about walking into a room that I know the person sitting across from me has no judgment, has no intent to hurt me, and will help me through whatever it is I need to go through. I think when people say, I know they're not trying to be dismissive, but when people say, that's what I got girlfriends for, let me tell you this. We go to school for a very long time to become able to clinically address certain things. I think so I got my bachelor's in criminal justice, a master's in counseling psychology. At that point, I was already working in the clinical field with severely persistently mentally ill clients. And then you go through 3,000 hours of an internship, 3 tests, and you're still not done then because you still want to learn. And I think it's really valuable for you to recognize that your girlfriends are fine, but your girlfriends don't always have the clinical knowledge that is needed for you. I know counseling, people who do counseling, all mental health professionals, we have all kinds of tools that we use. I think the biggest one right now is brain spotting and EMDR. And both of those are tools of therapy that we use to treat trauma. Another thing that I don't think people realize is, a broke leg can heal in 6 to 8 weeks, but trauma, it might take you 12 months just to get to the first base. Just to get to first base. One of a new person who I spoke to today, she's in therapy. She was scared to leave her house, and she had done a whole lot of work with her current therapist and was able to get on a plane. She couldn't leave her house. She was able to get on a plane, fly, and come back. And her therapist is retiring. And we had to go through, what does that feel like for you? And it worked out, and she had made some strides, and she's back at step one. I don't think we really even try to appreciate the fact that mental health is so serious. Do you know how many people I work with whose jobs don't even want to give them a day off? It's not a joke. These are real symptoms happening to people. We cannot be no longer, there ever was room for error or dismissiveness or minimizing. Mental health has to do with your brain. And I always kind of laugh when somebody says, oh, he's a brain surgeon. Man, he has a lot to learn. It's so much we don't know about the brain. It's so much. And I think with the establishment of EMDR, we got a little bit closer to understanding that, your brain has little compartments and everything might not come out all at once, and it might take 13 years. The other thing I want to say is there is no little t, big T. Trauma is trauma, and what might be small to you might be big to me. I can't compare trauma. I would never compare. Pain is pain. And I think sometimes we get into a habit of trying to coin a term so we can make it sound a little better. Little t and big T need to go out the door, because a little t from someone's thought processes might be dropping a plate on the floor that's glass and hearing the noise and it going everywhere. And that might just cause you to just sweep it up. For somebody else, it might bring back, let me tell you how this can work. The plate drops on the floor, right? You hear the sound, and it automatically takes you back to a gun shooting from 10 years ago, and my goodness, it got you. It got you. It makes me so angry when I hear comments about physical health and minimizing mental health. Physical health and mental health go hand in hand. However, mental health is one of those umbrellas that we just refuse to keep up. It's people that go to bed every night with untreated depression. It can be treated, and we're not only talking about medication. When I talk about inviting you to a psychotherapy session, that's not medication, it's treatment. It's treatment, but it's not medication. Everything does not have to be medicated, and everything is not medicatable. Let's just establish that. So one of the big questions that I always get is, what does it feel like to go into therapy? Well, what does it feel like to walk into a doctor's office? You probably sign in, you sit down, maybe fill out some paperwork. I think in today's world, a lot of us are doing paperless as much as possible. The difference is when you go into a therapy session, the room, it will probably be a lot different than a doctor's office, patient room. But you can understand why. When you walk into most therapists' office, it should make you feel warm and comfortable. It should make you feel like you're at home. It becomes a conversation with the therapist that relaxes you. And most therapists will have different, signs on the wall, sayings on the wall. They may have greenery. It is so much that I think helps you to relax and talk. And some people are like, well, I'm talking about what you talk about everything else, don't you? You talk about everything else. You shoot the shit in the street. You talk to the cash register. The AT. You talk everywhere, but you refuse to come into a counseling room to talk. That's how we communicate. And I think wherever this started, that there's a mental strongness that makes you look weak if you don't handle it. You're not handling it. You're not handling it. And one of the things that I like to tell parents about different things that might happen in their life, if you're handling it that way, what do you think your kids, how do you think they're handling it? Right? That breakup, that loss of a job. We tend to want to give our children Disney Worlds every day, and I'm sorry, that is just not the reality. Life is not Disney World every day. It's not. And I live for the day when parents can celebrate with their children, but can discuss important things that might not have gone right. You can either prepare your children or the streets will. I mean, kids hear us. You know, just like most people say, I know my children, I know my child. Your child knows you too. Your child knows you too. They know when something is bothering you. So in Houston, I think the biggest thing that worries me as a licensed psychotherapist is people trying to get up the next day and just go on like nothing ever happened. You can't do that. It's not going to work. It happened. You were scared. You thought you were going to be the next one crushed. Can you imagine thinking of being crushed and actually seeing people who might have? I don't know. And the symptoms may not come tomorrow. The symptoms may not come next week. You know, you could be, your brain is such a powerhouse that the symptoms might not come up for 2.5 years. And it might not have been the concert, but 2.5 years later, you get a divorce from your husband and your kids are taken away. And that's the boom that takes you right back to that trauma. And I don't care if you didn't address it then. If it's right here, let's address it right here. Invest in it. You know what we do? We do with medication. We know we do with it. You know, the doctor says, here's you some medication. Please take them all. They say this exactly. Please take them all, even if you're feeling better. Not us. Not us. What do we do? Shoot, I feel better. I don't want to take the thing. They hurt going down. The pill too big. Tastes nasty. All of these things. And guess what? We're not truly rid of the symptoms. We're not. We're not truly rid of the symptoms. And what happens in therapy? Oh, I went to 4 sessions and I feel better. You know, there's no 4 sessions may do it for you, especially if you are participating in the EMDR treatment. It could be. But even if 4 EMDR sessions, it takes that, stay in for a little bit longer. Just because some of that residual, you know, it might still be there. I want to encourage everyone, everybody, even if you do it online, and I've not always been a proponent of online therapy. However, I'm an advocate. And who am I to say what kind of gas somebody fills up in their car? We just want you to start going. We just wanted to start up. We just want you to get from point A to point B. It is not up to me which gas you use, which window cleaner you use, which vacuum you use while you're trying to vacuum your car up. It's not up to us. But the same way you go into a clothing store, and we all do this, okay? We'll pick up 3 or 4 outfits. And we'll go back to the dressing room. I stopped doing that. Listen, I don't like trying stuff on, but most of us do. And we'll go try it on. And dang, all 3 of them, we're going to say too big, okay? Because we ain't saying nothing too little. Not on this show. It is too big. And what will we do? We will walk back out, find a different size, and we might take 3 or 4 trips trying to try on clothes, but we will not take a second chance on finding a new therapist, and that ain't right. We will go back to a restaurant. How many times we done had something bad from McDonald's? And guess what? We go right back to McDonald's because we are used to a standard. Everybody is not the therapist for me, a lot of my colleagues. Don't let that hold you back. You had a bad session. That doesn't mean that you don't get any benefit out of therapy, right? Man, I could just go over a lot of stuff. We have got to do better. We do. When I think back at all the tragedies that we've had that might have been prevented had somebody says something, and even when they said something, we have got to decide what we're going to do. Oh my, I've done so many in my years, risk assessments on, suicide. So many. And each time, I don't know what that outcome is going to be. I don't. And when I was working in crisis, it was a little bit easier because usually I don't see the client again unless they receive services or whatever. But in private practice, it's a little bit different. We have got to stop discouraging people from utilizing one of the best things ever that can heal us, that can help us, that can help get us to the next rainbow in our lives. I wanted to come on here and just talk about something other than who's paying for the funerals, who's getting money, who's suing. Oh my goodness, can we just talk about the concert goers? Can we? Let's just talk about them. Give them some encouragement. Stop thinking they faking symptoms. Stop it. I am so sick and tired of the minimization of mental health. Mental health is a vital part of our community. It's a vital part of our country, the world. And we all might not have to do it the same, but at least try to do something. At least try to do something. I want each of you to go forward tomorrow with a little bit more compassion, a little bit more empathy. Is there somebody in Houston that you need to reach out to? Don't wait. Do it tonight. And even if there's not, go donate some money to something. I'm sure there's something we can do to help them recover a little easier. Because people might not be able to go to work. You know, it's so funny. We have FMLA will guarantee us time off, but if we don't get paid for the time we take off, how are we gonna feed ourselves? We have got to stop with the minimization, the dismissal of mental / behavioral health symptoms. All I can do is educate myself, make space available, and invite you. And if I'm not the right one, I will work like hell to get you to whoever is going to be the right person. I think I said that. Oh, yeah. Right now, I have a lot of adolescents. Oh, and I'll just let y'all in on a little secret. I'm about to start a adolescent girls group. It's time. We got to talk. And my whole thing is, if it's not me, just say, it's not me. I don't care as long as you get treatment that you can respond to, that you can feel comfortable with. And at the end of the very day, we might not ever get that event out of your head. I thought that about 9/11, and it's not like it's out of my head. When somebody asks about 9/11, I can transform straight back into what exactly I was doing. I had taken my car to get it dropped off to be mechanical work, just a routine. I was in the van with other riders who were getting dropped off at jobs. We were coming down Metro Center and we turned right by a gas station. And at that very moment, it's an Exxon, Starbucks. At that very moment is when I automatically come back up with it, because that is where that experience put me, and it will put me right there every single time. Every single time. Hey, Bootsy. Every single time. It will put us right back. There are so many things that we think we forget. You know, we don't want to talk about molestation. It doesn't go away. We don't want to talk about, alcoholism, drug use. A lot of time when we talk about those things, just the mere fact that it was talked about can be enough to save a life. We don't want to talk about gangs. We don't want to talk about venereal diseases, STDs. We don't want to talk about so much. It's a lot of stuff that I learned out in the streets that I would have preferred to just be taught at home. Have conversations with your people, young, old people. Woo! Don't give them too much credit, but the older people, that's where the knowledge is. I love them to death. I love hearing from our older folks. They have so much wisdom, don't they? So I appreciate and am so grateful and humbled to be able to even talk about this issue tonight. Can you lead tomorrow with, it's not about who was giving the concert, who set up the concert, who is getting sued. Think about, thank God, the people, the concert goers. Just think about, please let them have a better day. Please let them be able to afford treatment. Please let their families be supportive. But is never going anywhere, y'all. It might not be a common theme in your life, but it's not going anywhere. Our brain is miraculous. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. If people need to be off work, let the people off work. Stop. Don't go to work the next day. Stay in the bed the next day. Do what you need to do for yourself. And if that job don't want to let you off, then baby, that ain't the job for you. Because we're not going to keep letting you walk around popping off. We're just not going to do it. We're going to love on you and love on you and love on you. And it might not even be that you got to leave your home. It's so many different ways to get treatment today. And I encourage you, like I encourage everybody else, pick your treatment and let's get better today. Thank you for watching Tammy Speaks on Trrauma in Houston. I hope next week will be a better conversation. But this was a very informative one. If you have questions, reach out. If you have comments, reach out. If you have topics that you would love for me to talk about, reach out, because I'm about to roll it out, y'all. And let me tell you this. We about to get it popping, because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that I come face to face with every day. I appreciate y'all. Y'all stay safe. I'm excited. Thank you, Tammy Newton, for coming on, joining me in the conversation. I'm about to pump up the volume, and we about to get it going. Thank you, and I really, really appreciate everybody who watched. Good night.